No one tells you this your first year coaching. The hardest part isn't the sport or learning the sport, it's actually the people. You have to be able to manage their abilities, their disabilities, their emotions, their personalities. Everything about a person you have to be able to manage so at the end of their career, they're the person that they want to be. Hi, my name is Jacob, and I just finished out my first year coaching at a D3 wrestling program, and I'm going to share some of the things I learned this year. So the first thing I learned this year is how to manage the wrestling room. And it's not as easy as writing something down and going off a schedule. You actually have to read the room and feel the energy and go off that. That's the best way to do it in my opinion. And how I would do that is I would not have them do the same move for like 10, 15 minutes. I would take the stock to the bottom for the whole room. The energy would just go all the way down if you're doing something too repetitive for that long. It could be around, 8. It's a little high. I like to switch it up a little more. And that's just me personally. Some people have it longer. But for me, if I want to have the intensity the way I like it, as intense as it could be, I want to have them doing something for a short amount of time. And they know that's how practice is structured so that they could get the most reps out of that situation. That's how I like to do it. Now, in a situation where it's like open mat, then obviously work on the same thing for a long period of time and slow it down. But if I'm trying to have an intense practice, especially at the end of the season, where I like to go, we like to get in there, get out of there quick, so we're not wasting time and energy. We just want to be intentional about getting good, and that's how it's going to be. I like to move on to things faster. So that's how I like to do it. That's how I manage the room. And I think it's working well for us. So that's the first thing I learned how to do this year. So another skill that I learned, and I'm still developing it, is how to time the peak. So it's not about exhausting your athletes or getting them sore. It's about timing their best for those special moments. So throughout the week, we might have a match on Wednesday or Saturday. We do not want to go over our intensity budget, which is the terminology that I came up with. So they'll get sore and not feel their best for those special moments. And what I mean by special moments is you have to be able to pick and choose your battles. There's some times where it's best to just go, solid throughout the full week and not even care about the matches. If that's a match you're not really worried about, or we just got to focus up and get, real intense because that's what we need. Sometimes there's rooms that just need to be intense to get over a hump. And that's just what needs to happen. But for those matches that you really need people to perform in, you have to be able to time their peak. So the day before, the day of, 2 days before, is not about doing more work to try to change your physiology. You can't really do that for that day, the day that you're focused on. So what you can do is, instead of being intense and getting sore, you can focus on things that's going to sharpen your wrestlers, doing play wrestling, drills, light drills, things like that. So that's how I like to do it. I do like to pick my battles. There's some matches where we just got to go hard and not worry about that. And then there's some matches like we have to perform here. So we're going to do everything we can. We're going to work smarter, not harder. And that's an entrepreneur type of mindset we have to have. It's not about the hard work. It's about where we're working. What work are we putting in that we need, that we could utilize, that's going to make us, leap bounds? So that's something else. That's another skill that I'm developing as I go along. And another crucial thing that I learned this year. One thing that's a challenge for many rooms is the culture. And this is probably the hardest thing to fix. But once you fix it, everything just seems to fall into place. And I'm not really there yet. It's my first year coaching as an assistant coach. And this is something that I'm still, I think, struggling with as far as trying to get the culture to where I want it to be. So the things I've been trying is morning lifts and obviously promoting work outside of the wrestling room. So that's the best thing that I could come up with as far as that goes. And it's all about getting the people into that. But we like to do it organically with the morning lifts so we don't force anybody to go. So everybody's in a good mood who does show up to the morning lifts. However, it's not as many as we would like. But the culture is a very powerful thing. If we could fix that, that's something that really needs to happen. And that's kind of something that I knew about going in my first year coaching, but at the same time, it's something that I haven't really mastered yet. But it might just be something that goes with time if we do the same thing consistently. So that's another thing that I've been trying to work on and trying to learn. Something else I learned this year, and this one is a tough one for me, but you can't save everybody. There's a difference between the builders of the program and then the drifters. And the drifters are really just there just to have an accolade, just to be a part of something, which is fine. We love those people. But they're not the builders. They're not the people that are going to put the time in, the energy, make the sacrifices, or even have the longing to get better. There's two different types of people that I had to separate. In my head, I didn't do that going in, but then at the end, I'm like, if I really do want to build a program and make a difference here, I really do have to separate those two people in my head and put the time into the people that want the time. There's people in the program I put the time in thinking that they wanted the same thing I wanted for them, but it's really not the case. And you have to be smart enough to distinguish that. So that's a sad realization that I came to, and it's just something that I had to cope with. An educational bit of information that I learned my first year coaching is that there's 3 types of coaching callouts for a wrestling match. The first one is technical, so you're saying a specific wrestling move. The next one is situational, so you're saying things like you're close to the edge of the mat. Also, short time left. And finally, there's belief. So you're reinforcing what they already believe in. And once I became aware of these 3 callouts, I was better equipped to make the best callouts in those situations. So this was something that really did help me this year. Final thing I want to talk about of things I learned this year is it's not all about the wrestling. It's not all about that sport that you're coaching. Now, there's emphasis on the sport, but it's not all about the sport. I believe it's actually about the people, especially in D3 where no one's getting paid. 4 years is going to go by very fast, and they're not going to care about how you wrestle. It's about how you're going to make money, provide, and how you're a better person from that experience you had. So I know I said that you had to distinguish in your head between the builders and the drifters, but everybody deserves attention from the coach. Everybody deserves a second chance or a third chance. But after that, you have to be able to prioritize who's actually going to listen to you, who's actually taking the energy that you're putting into them and going to turn it into something, a profit, right? So it's about the people. It's about managing them, trying to get them to be the best version of themselves, trying to be a light in this world as a Christian, of how they could look back on their career and say, that coach or that person that helped me out, I really do appreciate them. I didn't appreciate it then, but now I do appreciate it. And I believe that's what coaching is about, getting them to be the best version, having an impact on their life, no matter what. It's not all about the wrestling. And there's so many people that go through programs and they're hurt the whole time, and you can't just neglect them because they're ineligible to wrestle for whatever reason. Some people do have good hearts and bad things happen to them, and it's up to you as a coach in a power position to uplift them and see them through. So that's something else that I've came to the realization of, and I'm definitely going to try to keep that in my heart as I go on. Well, that's all I had for this episode of Under the Fig Tree FM, Faith in Motion. Hope you enjoyed it. You could like, subscribe, and by the grace of God, do your job. Thank you. Bye-bye.